Hi all. So I wanted to show you one last project. I want to keep this video quick because I know I like to ramble in my videos. So I don't want to make this a feature-length film for you. So I did some pre-making. This here is my yurt. So we are making dwellings. I wanted to go with a dwelling that isn't all that normal of shape, right? So it's a circular shape base, and it is essentially building up from that. I would do something very similar if I was creating like a skyscraper or an apartment building or a ranch style house using this technique of building, but it would be just, adjusting the scale, adjusting the ratio of everything. The base might be squared out. You can always fold the edges here to create more of a different shaped base. All I did here for my front door was I cut out a rectangle. I folded them on either side here, and they are glued right into the frame, as you see. I did use some tape to hold it in place for a little bit because this is a vellum material. So as you all know, vellum has a funky way of sometimes it doesn't want to agree with you, so you have to force it to do something using tape. And then I just cut out an L shape, which gave me this door. So I then took another piece of vellum, a circle of vellum, and my finger stuck in my sculpture. So from the vertical towers that we have here, they go over and they are creating our roof. So again, this is something you can use when you're building something that has more of a triangle shaped roof. You can always use kind of the form to get it started, and then you can always use an additional shape to really form what the roof should look like. Okay, so what I want to show you is different techniques of finishing a home. So different things like what would be on the facade. So I'm going to show you stone. I'm also going to, what would look like stone on one side, what would look like shingles on the other, and then we will do more of a brick style as well. So I want to show you different ways of manipulating paper to create these kind of textures, and we will keep it quick so you can get it done. So what material are we going to use? I am a big fan of simple paper from a paper bag. As you see here, this is just a paper bag. This is what I got from my takeout a couple days ago, and you can collect your paper bags too. I really love paper, this kind of craft paper from paper bags. Craft paper is awesome. I mean, most of them are archival. Most craft papers are archival if you get them from a craft store, but if you want to just use paper bags, from my experiments, I haven't gotten any aging from my paper bags, but I'm sure there are some that age over time. But what I love about it is that it is semi-transparent, which is a great material for that reason alone. It is also a fairly thick paper, so it has a slight thunder effect, we talked about in the beginning of class. But it also has kind of a feel, it has the flexibility almost of a tissue paper, that it will really flex around different kinds of shapes that you might want to be playing with. So using this paper, of course, I have my Mod Podge here, right, as I always do. And I have my little cap of glue here. I am just going to cover my bones of my structure here with glue. I don't want too much, but I want it to touch all of the structure. All right, just want to, I always say this is not paper mache, right? We're not trying to soak our structure with glue, or, well, paper mache is glue and water, but you know what I'm saying. We're not trying to cover it completely. We still want the paper to stay dry. So again, I'm just kind of holding them in place. If you do have them, I have my handy dandy paper clips here. I can grab some. Just to put them in place, and then for this extra piece here, just gonna finish that up. Little extra bits. Then continue wrapping using my paper clips. Alright, this is, you all know what I'm doing at this point. And then finishing this more at the top, I would just cut a few strips over, and we can fold it down into what your roof will be. Okay, so if your roof is going to be a similar material, you can fold it down like so. If it's going to be totally different, you can just cut it right at the edge. So it's up to you how you plan on finishing this dwelling, or even if you need a roof. Some sculptures are nice that they are leaving spaces so you can look inside. But it's up to you. It's all up to you as the artist. So I'm just gonna pin these in place, and then I am gonna show you how I make a stone surface. If I can pick one of these paper clips up, geez Louise. So using my paper from my craft paper, or just paper bag paper, I am going to make stones out of those this paper still. So now that I have my surface kind of covered here, I'm going to start to show you what I would do to make stones. So all I'm going to do is cut out stone shapes. This really depends on the scale of your sculpture. I also like to curve off my edges on some. Some you can leave super sharp. Some you can make the edges a little bit curvier, right? Stones, unlike bricks, they're not supposed to be perfect. They're not all supposed to be the same exact stone. So feel free to get a little funky with the cuts. Okay, you can cut around, but rectangles are a good shape to start with, and then you can kind of customize some. And in addition to the cut, so you'll need a few of these cut out, you will also need a pencil, as you see here. And my pencil, I'm just using it to kind of play with different kinds of shading on my bricks that I'm making here, or stones that I'm making. And I adore my table for many reasons. It came from my alma mater, and I'm a big fan of it, and there's a lot of years in it. And what I do love about this cutting table, it was once a cutting table at Parsons Studios, and what's great about it has all of these cut marks in it. What is terrible, when you are drawing, you get all of these marks, so I always have to draw on a drawing board. But right now, I'm going to take advantage of these marks. So if you have a texture that is really interesting, I would put your stones right on top of that and just rub your pencil over it. Give yourself a little bit of texture to play with. Okay. And then all you're going to do is you're going to just glue your stones onto your surface. So why are we doing this while it's three-dimensional rather than when it was flat? we are doing this now because when your paper is slightly peeling up, okay, your bricks are slightly peeling, they are going to give more of the understanding of them being a three-dimensional object on top of your paper. Oh. That's the one thing about working with a circle. They're always going to flip around on you. All right. I think it's going to rest that way. So again, I'm just going to cover my stones backs virtually all with glue. I am not getting the glue around the perimeter. So I will bring that up a little bit. As you see here, the edges do not have glue on it. So that's going to allow the edges to kind of curl up a little bit, and then it's going to kind of play with the idea of these stones being three-dimensional. And what you might notice about most stone walls, right, the color of the stones are usually very similar, as well as the all of the material that's used around the stone. They usually keep it in a very similar color. So I do suggest you use the same color to make your stones, just add pencil marks on top. So if you are working with something that maybe you want to make the look of a limestone instead of maybe this is more like a sandstone, then you would probably use a lighter piece of paper and maybe even a lighter pencil or a different tones pencil. But you can still go about this in the same way. So you're just gonna stack, stack, stack. Okay, and then when you are adding your next layer, your next row here, column, I don't know why I can't speak. I know the difference between rows and columns. This is the next column of stones. Notice how like not all of them are the exact same size, so that's gonna, I think it's great when they're not all the exact same size. They look more real that way. And again, this is subtle. There's subtle differences happening here, but the details can really make paper sculpture stand out. So I suggest putting in the work for the details. So you can hold them in place and get them down. So I'm gonna get a couple more of these stones on there, and then we'll transition to showing you some shingle siding. Put one more on there. Let's see if Marshall always likes to come in these videos. I apologize, folks. If you could train a cat, let me know. Alright. So here is a stone facade. Okay. We'll let that dry and then we'll move on to shingles. Alrighty, so we have worked on a facade that can look more like stone. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look for something that looks more like shingles. I'm going to continue using my handy dandy craft paper slash just paper bag paper. And instead of using any paper clips, you'll probably need some masking tape or blue tape, painter's tape. I think painter's tape is a little bit better than masking tape, just because it peels off a little nicer. So you just want to get a couple of those prepared for you. You know, I always like to use my Mod Podge container to hold my tape as I'm working. It makes it easy to pull off right away, and I think it is always a smart idea to get your tape prepped before you start gluing, because it's going to be a mess once you start having to hold something in place and then rip glue, and I mean rip tape, and then you end up ripping the tape with your teeth, and it just becomes a mess. All right, so I have just cut out strips of paper here. As you see, they're just strips of craft paper, and I'm now going to address this part of my dwelling here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on the actual dwelling, on the base here. And I'm going to put one down here to start, and then I'm going to work my way up, down. So the reason why I'm doing this first is just so I have a mark on my floor, like on my ground level. And these strips are a little bit longer than I anticipated, so they'll go all the way over here. And we're going to do the same thing up at the top. Actually, no. This is right. I was right. Okay. So we are going to now go directly onto the craft paper. My bad, y'all. Got my steps mixed up. All right. So you're just going to put glue on the top half. And depends on how large you want your shingles to be. But I like fairly small ones. Kind of shows a lot of detail when you have quite a bit of layers working. So you won't need your tape for every piece, but it's nice to have when you're ready. Just hold it in place. Some ways you might have to add glue as you are layering. And this is when you might want to start working towards the middle, adding glue. And then you're just gonna repeat till you get to the top. So this is a less prep work than the stones, but it does take a little bit more time with the gluing. So if you were working on a building and it had a window in the center here, you could just work around the window as you're cutting and gluing. It doesn't really make it all that more difficult when you add extra elements to it. I think I need to cut out maybe 2 more strips of paper. Let's see. have this strip here. If I cut this guy in half, I think I will be good. And my last piece here, that's going to go right at the tippy top, so I'm making sure I get glue all over the top part of this paper. Alright, so that's how you're going to get more of a shingles look. This is also something you could use when you're making different kinds of animals. You could use this kind of look of just constant layers over each other. There's a couple animals that you could probably use this for, playing with like different kind of wrinkles in skin. But yeah, quick shingles, there you go. And we will tack the side in just a bit. Alrighty, so the last thing we're gonna do is we're going to make some bricks. So what we are going to do is we are going to grab a piece of paper that's going to fit the rest of our home here, the rest of my little yurt. And similar to the stones, I want you to have kind of a base paper and then another paper. I'm gonna color this paper with a dark gray for my bricks. I like using a marker so you can kind of get like just kind of a different texture to it. You can use color pencil if you like. Just is gonna take more time. So it is kind of important to try to get your bricks a similar size. So I just kind of hold them up. It's about the same, you know. They don't have to be perfect, but if you want to use a ruler, that could help too. So this is very similar to the stones. The only difference is I'm going to be putting the bricks together while it's flat, and I will show you why I do that. So again, this does not need to be craft paper. You could use watercolor paper that you've painted on so it looks like red brick. You can, you know, play around with different colors if you want to play with like a different color brick. It's up to you. It is always up to you as the artist. Alrighty, I can make these a couple more. Just in case I need a couple more. Why not? Alrighty, so I'm gonna take my bricks here and I'm gonna start building. I am making sure I'm in the right orientation. I am just putting a little dab of glue, as you see, and I'm just lining up those bricks. You can always adjust the size as you are putting them into place. So I am just going to cut this down a little bit. Looks a little too big. So again, utilizing, not using all of the glues, so there is a bit of lift on the paper, which allows the brick to have a little bit of a shadow, making it look more three-dimensional. So what's one thing you really need to make sure of with these bricks is just how they're set up. So notice how I'm not lining them up in columns the way we did with our stones. We are lining them across the way that bricks are. I think that it makes more sense that they are organized this way, you know. It allows more strength, and not rely on just like one brick splitting down the middle or something like that. So dispersive weight, I guess that makes more sense to me as I build. And I find that I understand more about the worlds the more I try to build a miniature world and understand more about architecture and space. So keep building, never stop. You'll always be learning. And I'm just kind of laying these down. All right, so once you have your bricks in place here, you can now glue them to the surface you want to include them on. Okay, so I made my paper a little bit bigger because I knew I had to cut it down for my bricks, right? Because I knew that there was going to be this overlap happening. So the technique I use with using a marker is also really great if you want to make the look of wood floors in a space. So you would just have to make them kind of similar to the way that you made the shingles here, just not as much overlapping. Alrighty, so I'm gonna install our last facade here, and I'm gonna do the same thing of just gluing directly onto the bones of our building, the bones of our yurt. To be a very interesting yurt with different sides on it, if it did exist. It'd be kind of cool. So just laying this in place. I am going to use paper clips for this one. And I'm just going to glue down on the edge just to make sure it's a nice seal here. Alrighty, so now we have brick, we have shingles, and we have a stone front home. So I hope that was helpful for you all to learn new ways of covering a facade here. And I hope that we continue to use this technique of building in this kind of basket weaving way. It is a really excellent technique to build really anything with. So you see we can build anything from architectural spaces to organic life to humanoid figures. So it is up to you how you use this technique, but I hope these were helpful ways to think about how to finish up a surface. Alrighty folks, it's been a pleasure.